Hey gang, welcome for a crazy one today. And as you know, anybody who is watching this channel and has been watching me since the beginning probably has very large bags of MicroStrategy. And there's a reason behind that, which we'll break down as well for a long time. But I have a new theory, which again is very far-fetched, but most of my ideas are, and oftentimes they come true, which is very bizarre. Not saying that this will, but it is very, very possible. This one is about a crazy crunch theory, supply crunch I've been talking about for a long time. So, and before I get into all the Bitcoin news, I just saw one thing breaking. ARK Invest didn't report their ETF flow until today, just now, and it's $100 million. That means the ETFs alone took in $1.1 billion on Friday, which is massive, but we're not going to talk about those today. And I want to thank Cybert, Andy, Nick, Batman, TND Tesla, Sean Donnelly, and anybody else I missed. Thank you all for coming. Let's get into this crazy supply crunch story. It's madness. Now, the crux, the short version of it, scarcity is real. We're seeing signs of supply crunch happening. I track the OTC desks, I track the on-exchange balances, etc. But we're seeing some funky stuff going on right now, which is causing a little bit of concern. We also have some crazy breaking news. Two huge pieces of news from MicroStrategy today. One, I knew it was going to happen, and now we get the proof of it. It will show the impact of it. And what is going to happen next is kind of crazy. The theory that I couldn't stop thinking about last night when I was trying to sleep, which I can't sleep, is could MicroStrategy become the only gateway to Bitcoin? Let me try lay out the story and prove that it's theoretically possible. Let's get into it. Disclaimer, not financial advice. Now we'll talk about some Bitcoin news first. And by the way, Okta is delayed because this is just too much Bitcoin craziness going on. I had to do this dedicated video. Shout out to Red Boving. Says, just subscribe to your Patreon. Excited to learn at an even faster rate. Woohoo! Guaranteed tons of alpha almost every hour in Patreon. Anyway, let's get into MicroStrategy's bold strategy. And I always say, if you ain't first, you're last. And this is a rough and ready video. This is supposed to be a quickie this morning. And then it became a 45 slide deck, which is monstrous. But I always preach this too. It's very important to be first. And that's a big part of the story too. And the agenda we'll talk through today. First of all, the visionary move, whispers of scarcity, signs of scarcity, staking, how it impacts other assets. I wonder what would happen if Bitcoin was stakeable, and how Bitcoin scarcity is intensifying. And what would happen if the last Bitcoin becomes available? What will people do next? And that is what I'm trying to get at here. And global impact and adoption. I'm not even going to talk about all the sovereigns, all the US states that are now allocating to Bitcoin. It is happening at an extreme rate. Way wilder than my wildest dreams. I didn't expect this to happen until 2026 to 2028. It's happening right now in 2025. And part of the fuel for it, and I know I've had to block so many people because they think I'm anti this, I'm pro this, whatever. I have no time for nonsense. But there are things happening that do impact Bitcoin and crypto, and I share those, okay? Just remember that. I don't care if you follow me or not or watch my videos. I don't give a damn. But for the good people that do, I care about those. That's why I share this stuff. So the SEC, Trump's new SEC, completely from beginning to end has been revamped. New people. They are launching a new crypto task force to develop very clear regulations for the industry, which will have a huge impact for custody, for banks, for payments, you name it. It's going to be massive for the space. The clarity we did not have over the past 4 years is now coming very quickly, which will be great for Bitcoin. In fact, Bitcoin price, as we speak, is $107,200. It's up $4,999 today as we speak. I can prove that to you by showing my screen. If I can figure out how to do that. Anyway, not to worry. We'll do that later. Trust me, it's exactly up $5,000 today. Madness. Anyway, more news. Bitcoin fair value. There's tons of people coming out now all of a sudden. And according to Bitwise, and they know their stuff, by the way, they are the shrewdest native fund and analysts that you will come across. I have a lot of respect for them. They believe fair value for Bitcoin could exceed $200,000 if it is used as portfolio insurance against sovereign default risks, according to Bitwise analysts. Again, they're the best in the business. Major economies, UK, France, Germany and the US face huge growing sovereign debt risks. As I've been talking about for a long time, the bond market is stuffed, and the bond market always tells the truth. UK is struggling with soaring interest rate costs despite rate cuts. Same in the US. We did US is over 36 trillion in debt, which of course the new regime is going to try and fix that. But I think it's impossible to escape. There's just way too much debt. There's way too many commitments. And as the Fed cuts rates over 100 basis points, the long end of the bond goes up over 100 basis points. That's a 200 basis point delta. It's broken. They've lost control. Nobody wants fiat. I've been calling it a melting ice cube for years and years and years. And now it really is. And people are terrified. And therefore, they are seeking a hard alternative, and that is Bitcoin. So 200K, fair value. And by the way, fair value doesn't mean actual value. That means the justifiable baseline price, everybody. Also, MicroStrategy had this cool new MicroStrategy Bitcoin per share metrics, which I do my own version of, which I'll share in a minute. They snagged another 11,000 Bitcoin. And we haven't even seen the fixed income offerings yet, which will be the most impactful to the metrics. And I've covered that before. But MicroStrategy has increased their core KPI so far this year in only a few days by 1.69%. So it requires 10.5 less shares to have an allocation to the value of one Bitcoin. That is another interpretation that still trips people up. People are still, I posted something earlier this morning, and they're still getting tripped up on, but dilution. Hopefully, this video will at last put that fear to bed. Debt. Debt is garbage. He's converting debt into hardness. Okay, all you have to do is sit back and wait, ladies and gentlemen. That's the key. I've been banging my head on this table now for key. In September 2025, I'll be talking about MicroStrategy now for 5 years, so I look forward to that 5-year episode. Maybe we'll have a little glass of wine if that happens. Anyway, if I still making videos at that stage, it can be very frustrating dealing with the public, and I'll share that very honestly. Anyhow, this guy, Brian Armstrong, who we'll talk about in a minute too, he says Bitcoin price is going into the millions. Over time, we will see Bitcoin get into the millions, multiple millions price range, okay? What I've been saying, I don't know when, it's going to $1 million. So get one. Become a whole coiner. Again, preaching this to friends and family since 2017 and publicly since 2020. All right? Get one. Stick it away and wait. It's a patience game. That's all. Not hard, everybody. Now, shout out to other Bitcoin news. Pray for Ross. Ross Ulbricht and his mother Lynn. Hopefully they will be reunited today after 14,000 days in prison. Okay, so she became an activist, which is awesome. And Elon believes he should be pardoned today, which is fantastic news for the space. Now, if it couldn't get any better or more bullish, Utah is in. Up to 10% of those assets, state funds, will now can be invested in Bitcoin. That is, again, I've lost track of all the states in the United States. Some of them are like the 5th biggest countries in the world, or 7th or 11th, depending on who you're talking about, whether California, Texas, or Florida. Big places are now beginning to allocate to Bitcoin. And there's not enough to go around. And we'll get into that story in a second. And here come the banks. Another news, too, from Cointelegraph. There's about to be another executive order easing bank ownership of digital assets, says the Circle CEO. And by the way, the Circle CEO is in the know, very well connected, like everybody else, like Saylor at all the events, like Fred Thiel from Marathon at all the events, etc. They know what's happening. Okay, I've talked about Michael Saylor's smile since, early January or late December? He was beaming something, and that is a signal for me. Now, speaking of banks, by the way, and we're not even getting into the supply crunch stuff yet, which is bonkers. Anyway, Bank of America CEO says financial industry will jump into crypto payments if regulators allow it. Massive. They want it. They were never allowed to do it. Once they get the green light, there is going to be a tsunami of development within traditional financial institutions to not only custody Bitcoin and crypto, but also use it for payments. Again, I hope you all get the picture right now. Never been more bullish on the space in my life. And we're going up from here. This is a chart that shows you where we are in the cycle. Black is the current cycle. If we compare to green, I hope I get these numbers right because I can't read them, a little too small for my eyes. I think green is 2018. I think blue is 2015 to 2018. Green should be 2018 to 2022. And the red one would be, I guess, 2012, 2015-ish. And the Genesis early cycle was very short. It didn't go the full length because it was a special situation. Anyhow, the point is, look where we are in black. We are just where blue was, which we're so far, we are tracking most similar to the 2015 to 2018 cycle. If that continues, we follow the blue line. Iga, thank you so much. If we follow the blue line, we're going very high, ladies and gentlemen. Remember, the green one was the manipulated cycle because of all the bad players in the space. But the blue one is most similar to where we are right now. Except Bitcoin is harder, it's scarcer, and it's a bona fide asset class that everybody now wants. Let's get into the story. This is my crazy Bitcoin crunch theory. And it is crazy, so I warn you, seatbelts. And I'm just a guy on the internet. I could be very wrong, but I see signs that say maybe not. First of all, we all know this guy, Michael Saylor. He's been on the channel a few times. It all began in August 2020 when he converted $250 million of melting ice cubes into Bitcoin. And he spent years researching what is the best thing to do. How can he protect his cash? What to do next? Well, he landed upon Bitcoin. And he was not a Bitcoin believer in 2014. And then all of a sudden, he becomes the #1 Bitcoin marketing department on the planet. And remember, he is first, and there will only ever be one MicroStrategy. Yes, I have other proxies, but being first gives you a dominant position. Yes, others will follow and do well, but not as well as this one. And we'll show why in a second. Also, they are now a new pivotal player. Any day you go to the stock market, you look at the top traded stocks, you get Mag7 and MicroStrategy. 8 names, that's it. And now they are becoming the new pivotal player in this new financial era defined by Bitcoin scarcity. They have on-ramps for all players, whether you are an insurance company or a very conservative investor, or you want some preferred shares, etc., that pay a dividend. You've got it all. Stock, convertible debt, preferred stock, and who knows what else they'll be coming out with in the future. It's bonkers. This is what I used to call financial jiu-jitsu, and it's still very much in play. Also today, MicroStrategy bought a big bag. I was expecting the usual 1,500 to 2,500 Bitcoin. They bagged 11,000 Bitcoin for about 1.1 billion at about 101,000 a Bitcoin. Right now, from that 11,000 Bitcoin times 6,000, that's how much money they made since they announced this. It is unbelievable. Who knows where their earnings per share will land if they're under the new Financial Accounting Standard Board rules. It'll be bonkers. They now hold 461,000 Bitcoin. Crazy, 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 crazy. And the bag of that 461,000 right now is just shy of $50 billion. 50 billion. They are the biggest institutional owner of Bitcoin on the planet by far. Also, this is crazy. They are issuing shares, and it's a revolutionary shift in capital markets for Bitcoin acquisition. Again, I've covered it 1,000 times, but what happens next is what you need to be aware of. Okay, this is kind of crazy. And again, I did a whole video on it. They are raising their authorized shares from 330 million to 10.33 billion. Okay, first of all, there's never been as much ATMing or debt issuance in a short window of time in the history of the planet. But they're about to take this to the next level. And this is what keeps me awake at night. This is what I think about. It's like, what happens next? Well, let's have a look at what they've done so far. And this is another illustration of where it's a model that I've been keeping track of. I shared it with Preston Pish when he was looking for a model ages ago for a video. Preston Pish is now in MicroStrategy, which is awesome. But this is what I call MicroStrategy Satoshis per share. Now, if you had purchased MicroStrategy shares back in 2020, you would now possess 7.24 times the Satoshis per share than you did back then. But it's the same share, okay? It's the same share. But you now have 7.25 times the amount of Satoshis per share. Hope people get that. Just holding on that one share has 7.24x'd. Now, what has also happened at the same time frame, of course, the MicroStrategy share price has gone to the moon. So is Bitcoin price, okay? Everything's going up. And yes, there's dilution. But if you have that share and you hold that share, you get more Satoshis per share, okay? And then people say, oh, but the debt. Again, I've covered that too many times. I'm bored explaining it, so I'm not even going to bother anymore. And shout out to Cern Basher. I shared this as chart. I said the number of people that understand Bitcoin is about maybe 1% of the planet. And then the number of people that understand MicroStrategy is about 1% of that 1% of the planet. That is the reality. And Cern Basher, top-notch Tesla analyst, top-notch. Him and I see eye to eye on pretty much everything. Now he is talking MicroStrategy. MicroStrategy has become the Bitcoin buying machine, continuing to make purchases, which you just covered, etc. That's crazy. It has now acquired a total of 461,000 Bitcoin, making it the largest corporate holder of Bitcoin in the world. And so far this year, as of January 20th, the number of Bitcoin per share has increased by 1.69%. If you annualize this number, it could hit about 35% per year. And even my bear case is 15%. 15%. But 35% could happen. And now I'm going to break down why. This is the supply crunch element coming into the story. And sorry to paint the picture, but it's a complex story. So I'm taking it step by step. So we can bring everybody along to make sure that they have some. First of all, emerging markets are all looking at Bitcoin. Pensions are looking at Bitcoin. Nation states, treasuries, corporations, you name it. Everybody's looking at it. And the OTC desks, last time I counted, have less than 190,000 left. 190,000. The balance on exchanges is about 2.2 million, of which most will not be sold. Okay? Just because it's on exchanges doesn't mean it's there for sale. It's because people don't trust themselves in self-custody. That's why it's on exchanges. But there's another crazy thing happening right now. Lots of scary rumors out, like major exchanges like Coinbase and Binance reported difficulties in fulfilling large buy orders for items like Solana. Remember, things like Solana, 65% staked. And this is not a Solana video. And I'm not talking about Solana. I'm talking about how scarcity happens. Very important. Bitcoin is a lot scarcer than Solana. But Solana is facing a supply crunch on exchanges right now. Okay? So, this is where, again, I'm going to paint a little picture to give you an idea of what's going to happen in the future. I just don't know when it's going to happen. Okay? First of all, Solana and Coinbase. Do they have any Solana? This is Mike Dudas. He sent two transactions. The first one took 6.5 hours to land. The second one hasn't landed in 3 hours. Coinbase says the future of crypto is on-chain, but clearly they believe on-chain equals EVM, despite Solana being the number one chain by volume. A lot of people, including Marty Party, friend of the channel, are very concerned about this, and also Mert, okay? This is what supply crunch looks like. And this is for an asset that is not anywhere near as scarce as Bitcoin. And it's already happening. So the question is, could a Bitcoin supply crunch happen? Most definitely, yes. Mert says, I'm seeing folks saying things like, my transactions on Solana are still pending from yesterday. And he says, clearly, it's not a Solana thing. It's the exchanges. They're throttling what goes out, okay? And users slam Coinbase over delayed Solana transactions, and they now call for proof of reserves. Show us that you got this stuff, okay? It's very difficult when you take your fiat on-ramp onto a place like Coinbase or Binance, and you convert it to Solana. You don't leave it there. You immediately move it to DEXs and trade with it, like me. And you leave nothing on exchanges. That's why I have such a comedic time talking to scammers on the phone and recording them and making videos. Because I pretend I have all crap, like with Dogecoin, I don't have on an exchange. I don't anything on an exchange, of course. But that's why I can fool with these people. Anyhow, this is what supply crunch looks like. But there's more. Let's get into other angles about Bitcoin scarcity, which is far more intense than the other tokens like Solana. This is the insane dynamics. First of all, the halving event. People think, they've forgotten about the halving event. But remember, we now only have 450 Bitcoin being issued per day. And major miners are hodling. This is Marathon in the middle. They now hold 45,000 Bitcoin. Probably more because they're mining every single day as well. And Saylor, he talks about the reduced supply will lead to unprecedented demand and price increase. As I always say, the higher the price goes, the more it advertises itself. And Saylor claims Bitcoin is the scarcest asset ever in the history of the world, and it's about to get even scarcer. So I want to hammer that point home. This video is about scarcity, supply crunch. Okay. And this, what happens? What happens when a big buyer comes along and the OTC desks are empty and the exchanges, yeah, there might be some on the exchange, but maybe they play funny games and give it to somebody else, like the, what's it called when banks are fractional. Maybe centralized exchanges will become fractional with things like Solana and Bitcoin. So be careful of that. But the problem is the last Bitcoin, of course, we know will be mined in 2140. So we have 110 years, give or take. Also, there is some weird stuff happening in the community. And I see it online. I see the toxicity. There are people that have mixed emotions about MicroStrategy. Some hate it. Some think they're buying too much. Some of the maxis never actually got it. But then the Bitcoin maxis, what are they all doing the last 12 weeks? They got it. The penny dropped. They understand what's happening. But still, there's a lot of toxicity. They think Saylor and MicroStrategy is bad and it's bad for Bitcoin and blah. Well, wake up, ladies and gentlemen. If the ETFs did not exist and if Saylor did not exist, the Bitcoin price would be 42,000 instead of 107,000. Put that in your pipe and smoke it. Also, this is the story. If Bitcoin supply crunch hits, which I believe it will, all attention will shift to the major Bitcoin holder, which is MicroStrategy, and it will be the only on-ramp to get access to your Bitcoin. That's my crazy crunch theory. I just want to share it with you all. But there's more. Sorry about this being a long story. It's, again, you can tell I think about this a lot. What happens if MicroStrategy is the only Bitcoin on-ramp? Is this something that Michael Saylor already knows? That supply crunch is coming. Of course, he's got visibility into OTC desks. He knows every week how hard it is to get his hands on 11,000 Bitcoin. He knows how much he has to pay over the odds. If you take the average price of Bitcoin over the last week, it ranged between 90,000 and 106,000. Say the average price is 98. He's got to pay 101. He's got to pay $3,000 of Bitcoin over the odds, okay, just to get access to it. And he doesn't care what he pays. He wants to stack it. That is the urgency. He doesn't care because he knows supply is going down and demand is going up. Therefore, price will go up. So, as he said many times as well, this is the strategy. Now, the point I want to break down here is he just increased the authorized shares from 330 million to 10.33 billion shares. Okay, that's a 31.3x increase. What's he going to do with these shares and the preferred shares? And the 17 billion left of convertible debt, and maybe more convertible debt being authorized as well in the future. This is where things get really nutty, okay? He knows there is a fixed supply of Bitcoin, 21 million, and as I always say, at least 5 million are lost. So call it never more than, at today's day, 15 million, maybe 14 million. And as it goes up in value, it gets more popular, okay? Now, if they increase the shares, which they got well, if they do it, at 31.3x, this could facilitate the largest Bitcoin purchase ever in the history of the world. And things get bonkers. And guess what? Guess what? They just got it authorized. And I said they would anyway, because Saylor controls 46% of the voting power. But as forecast, it was a foregone conclusion, as the board and Saylor were on board, and MicroStrategy shareholders approved that to increase the number of authorized stock. Okay, 31.3x. And remember, people freak out. It's like, oh my God, the dilution. If I take what's the price of MicroStrategy now? A $400 stock and divide it by 31, I'm only going to have a $15 stock or something. That's not good. But what people don't understand is this. Okay, every time they buy and you have shares, you get more Satoshis per share. Okay? Dilution be damned. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Now, I also ran some numbers, as I do, simulating financial outcomes. What would happen? What would happen if they issued all the shares at today's price? and bought Bitcoin? The answer is they'd be able to buy 35.26 million Bitcoin. What's the problem with that number? The answer is it doesn't exist. Saylor now has the power to buy all of the Bitcoin, all of the time, for years to come. Okay? And therefore, he's going to suck up the 200,000 on OTC desks or less. He's going to suck up whatever people will sell on exchanges. And that's it. That's it. It'll be like Coinbase not having any Solana to send out. Okay? Think about that. 35 million. Lay up the cash. And that's assuming the price today stays the same of his stock, which I think it'll go up. And I ran different scenarios. If only 10% of the stock is issued, the Bitcoin price goes to 330 grand. If 20% of the stock is issued, the price goes to 564 million. If Brian Armstrong tells you what's happening, it's going to millions, price in millions. Okay? I've been in markets started in capital markets 35 years ago. I've never seen something as predictable as this. Okay? It's very predictable. And markets don't like things that are not predictable. But I can tell you, this is predictable. He will issue shares. He will buy Bitcoin. He will suck up all the supply. Okay? And this is the game theory. Okay? The supply crunch theory and the game theory thesis. Ideas. First of all, early adoption. The person that gets in first gets the most return. Remember Talladega Nights? Also, limited supply. Literally, this is the game theory from hell dilemma. And Saylor has extreme confidence, and he's very smart, and he's very well connected. He knows everybody. Okay? This is absolutely bonkers. And remember also what he said. Very important. This is profound, his words. When you understand it, which is Bitcoin, once you get Bitcoin and it clicks in your mind, your immediate reaction is, I gotta hurry and buy as much as I can because someone else is going to take all my Bitcoin away. Okay? For years, the penny dropped for him in summer 2020. And then he had sleepless years because he wasn't able to get enough. I hope that's a lesson for everybody here. There's many lessons in this story. And also he said this, and this is going to happen too, by the way. The first country to print their useless melting ice cube fiat to buy Bitcoin wins. That's it. This is game theory on steroids like we have never seen in the world. If you asked me in Wharton 20 years ago, an example of game theory like this, I'd say, you're smoking crack. That's never going to happen. It's happening. It's happening. And it's fascinating. And remember, this is the new black hole. I love black holes. I invest in black holes exclusively. This is the new black hole that will suck everything in, because they own most. And it's impossible to build a bag their size as a treasury. Impossible. If Apple or Google or Amazon or Tesla, whatever, with their 30 to 130 billion in cash sitting in a melting ice cube deposit, tried to buy Bitcoin, they wouldn't be able to. They'd spike the price too much. He's sitting on a keg of explosive pricing power that nobody can match. Okay? Now, quick conclusion. Two little conclusions here. First of all, will this happen? Yes. Will others follow? Yes. Everybody's going to do treasuries. They're already doing it. Pensions are going to buy it. Can you afford not to own MicroStrategy share? Probably not, I believe. Will I sell my MicroStrategy share? Probably not. I'm holding it. I've got such a low cost basis or even a credit for much of my holdings from selling options against it that the tax ramifications would be too high. Can Saylor pull this off? Yes, the math is on his side. I've been nothing but analyzing his math since the beginning of time. And if Bitcoin supply crunch happens, okay, if Bitcoin is no longer available, like I've given you case studies of where it's already happening with other assets, MicroStrategy will be the only on-ramp, okay? And then the NAV premium will skyrocket, okay? If you're desperate to get your hands on something and there's very little supply, you will pay whatever it takes. We saw that during C19 with toilet paper, okay? There were people buying up all the toilet paper in supermarkets. And I don't know what toilet paper costs, to be honest, maybe $5 or something. They were selling it for $20 and $25. Okay, that's scarcity. That's the pricing power of scarcity. That'd be the equivalent of a NAV premium of MicroStrategy for 5x. Okay, now, the other risks regarding this, Could the SEC block it? Not sure, and I doubt it with the new SEC. And could it torpedo Bitcoin? No, it benefits Bitcoin. The maxis now get it. Okay? What a story. And remember this guy? Yeah. I believe one day MicroStrategy could be the only Bitcoin on-ramp. When supply crunch hits, will it hit? Am I sure? No. Is it probable? Yes. And it's becoming more probable every single day. Nobody has crunched the numbers like I have on this one. Thank you all for coming. All these videos are turned into Substacks. Thank you to the team behind that helps with that. And you can listen to them again. There's a ton of materials, like 50 slides in this one. Tons of data. And MicroStrategy has been the trade of the decade, maybe ever. And that's bigger than all the other 50x trades. It's crazy. But it's also not too late. He doesn't think so. So, scarcest asset on the planet. Thank you all for coming. I appreciate the mods, TND Tesla, K8, Sean Donnelly, and the whole gang, and I hope I didn't miss anything. That was a big one. I'm going to drink some tea now. Have a good afternoon, everybody. See you tomorrow for Octa. That'll be back, and it'll be a bonkers one too, because crazy stuff is happening in the Situation Room here on Bitcoin Land and crypto. Thanks all. Bye.